Hi everyone, I'm Jaden and I'll be presenting on the first 7 chapters of Bless Me Ultima by Rodolfo Anaya. Throughout these first several chapters, Anaya does a really great job of creating many different points of conflict. And one of the main points of conflict that stays pretty consistent throughout the first few chapters is the conflict of internal tension between Antonio's family. Antonio's mother and father have completely different views on life and culture and traditions, so it creates a really big divide between them and the whole family. Maria has one view on life and Gabriel's a completely different view on life, and I feel like Antonio is really caught in the middle and he struggles, and I'm sure the other kids do too, but we really see it through Antonio since he's the narrator. And Antonio's only 6, but he really sees how his mom completely despises and is in disgust of Gabriel's family and what they do, and really doesn't want her kids to turn out like him or that side of the family. And I think it's really hard for Antonio because he wants to please both of his parents, and his mom wants him to become a priest, and his dad doesn't think highly of priests or think that he thinks they're woman-like, and Antonio wants to be accepted, of course, by both of his parents and loved. And so I think it's really hard, especially at a young age, to feel like you don't know what side to choose. And I feel like for a lot of kids who have parents who don't get along or have different views on things, it's really impactful on the children. And I think Anaya does a really great job of showcasing this in the character of Antonio, because you see how he is torn between both of his parents and what they want for him in the future, and it's really hard for him, and it's really common in everybody's life. So I think this is a really great portrayal of how this can happen. And although Antonio is really struggling with the pulling of both of his parents, he really finds a lot of comfort in Ultima. And I feel like Ultima kind of depicts a grandmother figure in a way, because she creates a lot of safety for him, but for everyone she's just really knowledgeable and important to the family, and everyone has a lot of trust in her because she has been around the family for a long time, and they know how smart she is and all the knowledge she has about the earth and so much more. And so for Antonio, she plays a huge role in his life because he knows at the end of the day that Ultima is really the only person who knows his destiny. And although she doesn't tell him, he really finds a lot of safety and comfort in the fact that she knows, and it makes him really draw towards her, and they spend a lot of time together. And I think her character is really important to him because of him having such a separate parents have such a separate view on life, and having Ultima to be his comfort and peace is really important. And I think Anaya does a really great job of capitalizing on this relationship, and he displays it in such a positive light and an important light. And I think this relationship will be really important throughout the rest of the story. So in chapter 2, Lupito is killed, and I think this is a really big turning point for Antonio. Although it happened really early in the story, I think it's a turning point because although there's a lot of turning points for Antonio in the story, I think this is a big one because of the fact that he really struggles internally with this one, and it really drives him to question a lot of different things, especially sins and afterlife. And he questions his father and Lupito and what's going to happen to them. And it's hard because he's so young and he's really struggling with this internally, and he's kind of alone in this besides having Ultima. And it really leads him to get interested in religion and what religion is. And so for Antonio's family, religion is really important, well, especially for Maria. And they are Catholic, as a lot of Chicano families are. And it's a really big point of tension. It's another big point of tension in the story because of the fact that Maria has such a different view than Gabriel has on it, and how important religion is to Maria, and how important she wants it to be for Antonio, because she wants him to be a priest one day. And so it drives more internal conflict for Antonio, because he doesn't know really how important religion is to him or is not to him. But it creates a lot of curiosity for him, and he's getting a lot of different aspects of it. And I think Anaya just once again does a good job of, showing how torn he is, and creating a lot of different points of tension for the narrator and in 6-year-old Antonio. So when Antonio's brothers return from the war, although everyone seems really happy, I just think this is going to create a lot of underlying issues, due to the fact that when war veterans come home, oftentimes people are really happy, but they don't realize how difficult a time they've had in the war, because no one knows what they've experienced. So they don't really know how damaged or how much they're going to struggle being back in the regular world, because it's really hard for them to get acclimated and back to regular life. So I think this is just going to create underlying issues, and might create even more harm than them being gone. And I just think that it's really common throughout a lot of people who go to war. And just like Lupito earlier, he really struggled after coming back from the war. And I think that there will be some sense of that, because they've been gone for a while, and being back home is really going to be hard. And I think this kind of leads to one of Antonio's dreams, where he is torn between saving his brothers. And throughout the whole first 7 chapters, Antonio has a lot of different dreams, and he's kind of facing a lot of conflict in these dreams, because he's really trying to understand what these dreams mean and how important they are. But he's also 6 years old and doesn't really understand them. Even though Anaya does a really great job of explaining these dreams, I think it would be really hard for a 6-year-old to internalize these dreams. Even though it's clear that Antonio is smart and kind of gifted, I still think it creates a lot of internal conflict and tension for him. But they are really important to these first several chapters, and I'm assuming they'll be important throughout the rest of the story. So the last point of tension, in my view, in this story is when Anaya really creates this conflict between Chicano and Anglo culture. So this is a really important part of the story, because of the fact that Antonio's family is living in New Mexico, and their Chicano family living in New Mexico. So they're struggling with the fact that they are able to love and appreciate their culture at home, but in the outside world, their culture is completely neglected and really not spoken about. It's basically just ignored. And this is really hard for Antonio at first when he goes to school, because he's all the way up until the age of 6, he's been speaking Spanish at home and loving his culture, and really been committed to that and kind of sheltered by that. And he hasn't really experienced going to school and having to speak English. And even though his sister told him about the fact that he's going to speak English, he was just more scared and didn't really want to do it. And so when he actually goes to school and teachers are speaking English and the other kids are speaking English, it really leaves him isolated, because he doesn't speak English, and he has a really hard time at first getting acclimated to this new world. And I think that it's important that Anaya brings this up, because of the fact that Chicano people have struggled and continue to struggle with the fact that they have to love and accept their culture, love and appreciate their culture at home, but in the outside world, it's just basically not talked about. And although there's been more appreciation of Chicano culture. In the more recent years, it's still not appreciated and as much as it should be. And so I think this is like a really important part of the story, because as Gabriel's sisters come home and speak English, and as Antonio's sisters come home from school and they're speaking English, Gabriel becomes really upset with them, and it makes them feel like, well, we have to speak English at school, but at home we can't do it. And I think this is actually something that Chicano people experience a lot, because they want to preserve their culture but also fit in with the Anglo people. So I think it is really hard, and I think it is really important that this is brought up in the story. And I think that there was a lot of different points of tension, and this really concludes like all of what has been happening in the first 7 chapters of Bless Me Ultima.